I couldn't help at one point in my discussions privately with General Secretary Gorbachev, when you stop to think that we're all God's children wherever we may live in the world, I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet outside in the universe. We'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together. Well, I don't suppose we can wait for some alien race to come down and threaten us, but I think that between us we can bring about that realization.
A UFO in China's skies forced Zhoushan Airport to stop operations on July 7th. Outbound flights were grounded after the unidentified flying object was detected by a flight crew. The incident has captured the attention of Chinese media, and theories about the UFO's identity are burning up on the internet as well. They include everything from a hidden U.S. bomber to an elaborate man-made hoax. For now, the UFO continues to be a mystery. A spokesman from China's Civil Aviation Administration confirmed to ABC News that the matter is under investigation.
Some Chinese residents are on edge this morning after another apparent UFO sighting. It's the second one in 2 weeks. The first sighting was on July 7th, and an airport had to be shut down.
All right, that's a UFO if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, can you identify
it? That's undeniable.
The airport had to be shut down after people apparently saw twinkling lights above the airport terminal. 17 flights had to be diverted. The latest sighting happened just 2 days ago, and people say they saw 4 lantern-like objects forming a diamond shape in the air, hovering in the sky for over an hour. And aviation experts say they don't know what it was. It wasn't a plane.
Scientists from all over the world are trying to figure out what caused a mysterious blue light to spiral in the sky over Norway on Wednesday.
As UFO sightings go, this one was as good or as weird as it gets.
A light appearing high in the Arctic sky, baffling those who saw it and exciting a lot of comment.
And we've been hearing a lot lately about dozens of other habitable planets being discovered. And today, NASA is hosting a discussion panel about these habitable planets that are just a short, 10, 20 or so light years away from us. So RT correspondent Megan Lopez joined us earlier from NASA, and I first asked her if we were close to finding another life form in our solar system.
Do aliens even exist, and how would we know?
Well, the Kepler satellite currently orbiting in outer space has identified about 50 planets that seem very much Earth-like. In fact, every week we discover another Jupiter-sized planet in outer space.
They need to figure out what type of activity that is. But with the organic materials, it means that we could find a footprint of Martian life that used to exist. And if there's plant life that used to exist, it could mean that there's other life that used to exist. So scientists at NASA are very excited. They just unveiled this, and it presents a new puzzle to sort of solve for them.
In this presentation, we'll be exploring the massive deception of the UFO and alien agenda. NASA, the science community, the top elite are preparing us for something. The Great Deception is coming to our world. Without the evolutionary theory, aliens would not exist. But they do. And with more recent sightings, the scientific community talking about other life, discovering planets, the entire Big Bang universe is a hoax. The entire Big Bang universe they have constructed is to enslave us into the great deception that's coming into this world. The great deception has been planned for years. Satan, the god of this world, is preparing mankind for the great deception that's coming into the world. In this presentation, we will see the link between Satanism, New Age, and the UFO alien agenda. Where did we come from? Who created us? The notion becomes even more alarming when you understand that more and more people are looking to the alien theory as planting us in our DNA at some other time in the universe. Even Dawkins proposes this.
Well, then who did create the heavens and the earth?
Why do you use the word who? You see, you immediately beg the question by using the word who.
Well, then how did it get created?
Well, by a very slow process.
Well, how did it start?
Nobody knows how it started. We know the kind of event that it must have been. We know the sort of event that must have happened for the origin of life.
And what was that?
It was the origin of the first self-replicating molecule.
Right. How did that happen?
I told you we don't know.
So you have no idea how it started?
No. Nor has anybody.
Nor has anyone else. What do you think is the possibility that intelligent design might turn out to be the answer to some issues in genetics or in evolution?
It could come about in the following way. It could be that at some earlier time, somewhere in the universe, a civilization evolved by probably some kind of Darwinian means to a very, very high level of technology and designed a form of life that they seeded onto, perhaps this planet. Now, that is a possibility and an intriguing possibility. And I suppose it's possible that you might find evidence for that if you look at the details of biochemistry, molecular biology. You might find a signature of some sort of designer.
Wait a second. Richard Dawkins thought intelligent design might be a legitimate pursuit?
And that designer could well be a higher intelligence from elsewhere in the universe. Well, but that higher intelligence would itself have had to have come about by some explicable or ultimately explicable process. It couldn't have just jumped into existence spontaneously. That's the point.
So Professor Dawkins was not against intelligent design, just certain types of designers, such as God.
With their fake land rover on Mars, discovering water, or the remains of water, is to give us the notion that there are other life forms out there, and that they will come in contact with humanity, will give us the answers, will tell us the reason, why, who, what, when, where. All of our questions will be answered. This is the Antichrist system Satan has planned. He has worked with the science agencies, with the space agencies, with modern physics. The scientific community is not science. It's a religion. It's an agenda. Look into the facts, study these. Understand that we have been lied to. Our entire universe is one big lie. If we look into everything, we will see that the UFO alien agenda is the grand finale of the entire deception that's been placed on humanity. Why would they lie about the Big Bang universe? Why would they lie about evolution? Why are they lying to us? Why are they lying about the Earth? Because without the Earth being a planet, everything falls apart. The Earth is not a planet. God created us unique and special. The Earth is stationary. It's motionless. The Bible is very clear. The war between science and religion has been going on for thousands of years. Understand that the science community has hijacked real science, the scientific method of being able to observe, to test, to repeat, to do an experiment that can be verified. None of their claims can be verified. They mask everything in billions and millions of years. From the fossil record to our entire universe, from the stars that are in the sky, the alien agenda is the grand finale. of all of the deceptions and of all the lies that have been told to this world. Understand that you've been lied to.
Every day we see things in the sky. There's about 150 UFO sightings every day. Now 90% can always be explained as, naturalistic or man-made objects. And what's happened is there's been a cultural conditioning because of the advent of science fiction. Science fiction is the #1 entertainment genre today, bar none. And because of evolution, people interpret what they see in the skies as being otherworldly craft. So simply put, because evolution is the ruling paradigm, if evolution occurred on the Earth, they think there's somewhere in this 14 billion-year-old universe, there must be a myriad of planets, and if that life has evolved on those planets million or billion years in advance of human beings on the Earth, well, just imagine how advanced their technology would be. I mean, that's the stuff of science fiction, right? When they go out and they explore the universe and they see, in Star Trek, all these different alien races at different stages of their evolution. And so people look up and they interpret based, I think, on those two things.
What is coming here? Jesus says that let no man deceive you, many will come in my name. He also says that even the elect would be deceived if that were possible. We read in 2 Thessalonians, Satan comes with all signs and lying wonders. So it gets to the point, what are we really looking at here? What is coming is unprecedented. And the roots of all this can be found literally in Darwinism, because Darwinism sets up an intellectual and spiritual vacuum in a person to where that person goes, well, if we're just, an accident of evolution, well, where did it all start? There are people in academia, in science, in exopolitic movement who are looking for our creators, our progenitors. There is a movement called exopolitics who are looking towards E.T. as just exactly what, now that sounds far out. He says, well, maybe millions of years ago in another part of the galaxy, a race of highly evolved extraterrestrials would have created mankind and then scattered us through the universe, and here we are. That's panspermia. So Darwinism sets up, what it does is it erodes, cuts away the bulwark of the worldview, of the Christian worldview. It cuts away at the knees. And so we are now in this post-modern Christian world where, well, we all evolved. And even some theologians and pastors will say, well, God used evolution. Baloney. No, he created everything. He spoke it into existence. But this sets up the paradigm, okay, for the coming great deception. Darwinism is sort of a linchpin which sets up the coming great deception.
Imagine 100 years ago, a farmer standing in his field one night and he sees some lights in the sky and they're interacting with each other and moving as if they're guided intelligently. But 150 years ago, they've never seen a motor car. You don't have any concept of alien worlds, spaceship or anything. So you will interpret it within your cultural understanding of the day. Okay, so he might say, well, maybe it's an angel or a demon or something like that. Now, let's shift forward today. What's the first thing somebody would say if they saw some lights moving around the sky? It's a UFO. Now, UFO is a loaded word. It doesn't mean unidentified flying object anymore. It means alien spaceship piloted by extraterrestrials. So that's why I think the idea has become so mainstream. So that's the evolution connection to it.
Because all the signs are here. All the signs are here. And what's coming, signs in the heavens, signs on the earth, what is coming is unprecedented. And it will cause, in my opinion, this great deception, which says that E.T. created all life on earth, that E.T. Genetically manipulated us, that E.T. started the world's civilizations, that E.T. created all the world's religions, and now, at this critical juncture in human history, E.T. has come to give us a DNA download, upgrade.
And again, isn't it interesting that all of these researchers seem to concur that these aliens want to come and give us spiritual messages?
I want you to know that God isn't personal, He's a force. And Jesus is not the Savior. I mean, He's just a more highly evolved being than I am. I've heard about Him, I haven't seen Him yet, but He's on a higher plane. And on it goes. Spirit survival. No, Dad, there's no judgment. God doesn't judge you. You don't face Him in judgment. We just move into graduate school and we continue to learn our lessons, and progress and so forth. All of the lies undermining what the Bible says. But the Bible is the book that has true prophecies, no false prophecies. You can't escape it. It's true, okay? So when these entities begin to disagree with the Bible and undermine the Bible, I know who they are. In fact, you know, I've interviewed people around the world. I've been studying this thing for years. Whether they're channelers, you got about 1,000 of them in Los Angeles. We used to have. I don't know how many they have now. Read some of your New Age publications. They will admit that what the channelers, what the psychics, what the mediums say all over the world who've never been in touch with one another, there's a continuity to it. There's an amazing similarity, not just a similarity, but it's coming from the same source, obviously. And there's a definite philosophy that is presented that conforms to the 4 lies that the serpent introduced to Eve in the Garden of Eden. That God is not personal but a force, that you don't die, there's no death, you just get recycled, reincarnation, and we're moving upward, we're evolving upward to godhood. You can become a god. That's the lie of the serpent. And the 4th one, nothing wrong with you, it's the way you think. You need to be initiated into this knowledge, the tree of knowledge, with a dark and a light side, you know, the Star Wars Force and so forth. They all say that.
Sir John Eccles, Nobel Prize winner for his research on the brain, describes the brain as, quote, a machine that a ghost can operate, unquote. What he means by that is your spirit operates your brain in a normal state of consciousness. In an altered state, reached under yoga, TM, hypnosis, you have loosened the normal connection between your spirit and your brain, and that allows another spirit, other entities, other minds to interpose themselves and begin to tick off the neurons in your brain, create a universe of illusion. I believe that it's demonic. I think all of the evidence indicates this.
The modern reports of UFOs, alien greys, abductions, ghosts and spirits, and paranormal activity are all related to these demons of renown, the Nephilim. Because they are telepathic, they present themselves in different forms. They have access to your mind and anyone within your memory. Remember, Satan himself can appear as an angel of light, deceiving even the elect. Those who claim to have psychic abilities are opening their minds to demons. TV shows like Ghost Hunters, Paranormal State, and Psychic Investigators are playing with fire. Psychic investigators claim these psychics communicate with dead victims and help the police catch the killer. Other shows attribute these spirits as some disgruntled person who died violently. This is a perfect example of how some demons will present themselves, appearing as a dead victim to help solve a crime, or a relative pretending to give some type of guidance. They are desperate for human interaction. There are different types of demons. Some desire to help man, as described in the Midrash. Do not be deceived. I believe the form of the alien greys is their true form. Being stripped of their apparel, they go naked, and they have horrible faces. This sounds very much like the condition in which they were condemned by God. They are in the process of their last scheme, appearing to be friendly and willing to help mankind. Some scholars believe they will deceive the world against the return of Christ, painting him as an invading alien.
Some of the passages that puzzle me the most in the scripture, it describes that the whole world is going to go to war against God. Now, I can understand the world rejecting God, I can understand the world not believing God, but somehow it's always been hard for me to visualize the world mustering its resources to go to war against God. And yet that's clearly what it says in Psalm 2 and a number of other places. But you know, suddenly I can begin to understand how this might happen, because there are many people that believe that there are already aliens among us conspiring with the government, whatever, and they visualize these as being the good guys. They're here to help us. They're here to give us advanced technology. There are people that really have this kind of attitude. I can begin to see a scenario which we sometimes call good cop, bad cop kind of thing, where Satan's emissaries pose to be our friends to help prepare us for the bad guys who are coming. And I can visualize the whole world being deceived and taking up arms against God, thinking that they're being led by their friends who are actually Satan's emissaries.
They have been stripped of their apparel. They go naked. And they have horrible faces.
This is a quote from an early Jewish writing called the Book of the Cave of Treasures. It tells of fallen angels and their bastard children called the Nephilim. God destroyed the Nephilim's bodies and doomed them to wander the earth in an invisible dimension, and they are still terrifying men. In our modern paradigm, they are known as demon spirits. The word demon is from the Greek language and implies a supernatural knowledge. This demon knowledge is superior to our own knowledge. The Bible tells of their creation in Genesis chapter 6, and they were the cause of the destruction of life on earth. The Apocrypha and early Jewish writings expound on these evil spirits. The Book of Enoch tells of their giant stature and how they manipulated the genetics of man and animals in every imaginable way. In other words, no stone was left unturned in their evil experiments.
The answer to all this and the clue to this cosmic riddle may be found in the ancient book of Genesis. And back there in chapter 6, we are told of a very amazing and bizarre event. The sons of God saw the daughters of men and saw that they were beautiful, and they lusted after them. And then we read they married them and sired children from them. For the past 1,500 years, most scholars, including evangelical scholars, have interpreted the sons of God as the good sons of Seth, and the daughters of men as the wicked daughters of Cain. They've adopted that interpretation because the other one is so bizarre and outlandish. The ancient interpretation, and in my opinion the correct one, is that the sons of God were demonic beings or fallen angels, and that they came down to earth, they lusted after the daughters of men, they married them, and produced this amazing progeny, this hybrid progeny of the Nephilim. And the very word Nephilim does not mean giants. It comes from the root Nephal, fallen ones.
Edgar Mitchell, a former Apollo astronaut, went on the record on Kerrang Radio. And after he sort of announced it on Kerrang Radio several years back, I saw him again on the Fox News channel with Sean Hannity on a sit-down one-on-one. And Edgar Mitchell's basically stating, look, Roswell was real. There was a crash and bodies that were recovered from Roswell, and our government covered it up.
Yes, there's not much question at all, but there's life throughout the universe. We're not alone in the universe at all.
You're convinced that we're not alone in the universe?
Oh, I know for sure we're not alone in the universe. And I happen to be privileged enough to have be in on the fact that we have been visited on this planet. And the UFO phenomenon is real, although it's been covered up by our governments for quite a long time. It is a real phenomenon, and there's quite a few of us. It's been well covered up by all of our governments for the last 60 years or so, but slowly it's leaked out, and some of us are privileged to have been briefed on some of it, but I've also been in military circles and intelligence circles that knows beneath the surface of what has been public knowledge, that yes, we have been visited.
He believes that, like I do, that there is a cover-up. We just have a discrepancy in our world's view as to what we're really, what's behind the phenomena. Again, he's extraterrestrial. I'm interdimensional, and specifically the fallen ones, fallen angels, which we read about back in Genesis 6, once again manifesting on the earth. So there is evidence. There's plenty of evidence. We've got the witnesses.
The popular documentary Ancient Aliens is trying its best to convince people aliens from other planets are responsible for the creation and evolution of mankind. They openly deny the God of the Bible while interpreting Bible passages in the same breath. I believe this is one of the deceptions Jesus alluded to concerning the end times, deceiving even the elect. The ancient alien theorists point to many artifacts and structures and claim these extraterrestrial aliens built them in the ancient past. I believe some of this is true, but these entities are not aliens from another planet. They are demonic spirits from an alternate universe, where they were sentenced by God. They are now disguising themselves as alien greys and are pretending to help man. Their spirit is also behind the transhumanism movement, the altering of human DNA. Most people are not even aware of what is going on behind closed doors. Scientists are actively manipulating the genes of animals and man under the guise of improving humanity.
We are shifting to a transhuman base. We've come out of a humanist time, and now we're redefining what it is to be human.
Whether we like it or not, we're becoming cyborgs. We're becoming transhumans.
We have the opportunity now to try to do things better than nature has done.
Why not have a stronger arm than we have? Why not be able to run faster? Why not be able to have tougher skins?
If you're going to replace your eye for vision, why limit it to visual? Why not give it the kind of vision a bat has? Give it ultrasound.
Could you imagine a Versace body design? Can you imagine a Thierry Mugler body design? These individuals, the late Versace was an incredible designer. What if he was a transhuman? What if he was an artist who really wanted to combine art and science? I bet his designs for a future body would be astounding.
So if we can humanize the pig kidney by putting in some human DNA, which will make the cells look a little bit more human, so that they are not rejected by the person immediately, then there's a better chance that you'll have a take. And this is tried to humanize animal tissues, and it's becoming a big industry because we need more organs.
I think increasingly we're going to start realizing that this body is not sacred. The way we are is not some kind of God-given plan. It's really a pure random accident. We take two sets of genes and we shuffle them and something comes out. Sometimes it's a wonderful product, sometimes it has a hole in the heart, sometimes it has psychosis or tendencies towards extreme anger, has addictive problems, can't concentrate, all kinds of defects. To say, oh, that's normal, that's sacred, that's good, to me is rather absurd. It's random. There's not a plan there that we're thwarting. So genetic engineering seems to me one of the most moral things we can do.
Wow, doublespeak at its best. This last man has completely reversed morality, saying transhumanism is the moral thing to do, when in fact it is the exact opposite, and the very thing the fallen angels and the Nephilim did in the days of Noah. All of these people believe in this delusion and are influenced because of their denial of God. The same is true with the ancient alien theorist. God sends a deluding influence so they will believe what is false, because they delight in their own evil will, as explained in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2.
The idea around what we are doing in the genetics right now of humans, animals, plants, all seems to be an all-out assault on God's creative genius that goes back to that Genesis prophecy about the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman being set at odds one toward each other. And this is why, of course, Pandemonium's Engine, why we gathered all of these scholars to address the various aspects of this issue, because in my opinion, nothing could be more prophetic. All of the Bible is all about genetics, the purity of genetics, and a war over genetics. Then it's a Mephistophelian bargain. It's a deal with the devil. It's back to why we named the book Pandemonium's Engine, that deal that was struck in Paradise Lost. Ye shall be as gods, is whispered in the ears of humanity. And but where does it take us now? I think we're seeing a repeat of ancient science.
That was his power. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
The Science Channel's TV series, Through the Wormhole, is hosted by the beloved actor Morgan Freeman. In the episode, Can We Eliminate Evil?, Morgan Freeman says Satan doesn't exist. He is just a symbol, implying Christianity is for the weak-minded. Morgan Freeman, like so many others, lives in the delusion of his own will, and by denying the existence of Satan, he denies his creator as well.
The latter days, in part, will be distinguishable because of the rise of powers that have been suppressed or repressed over the years, but in the latter days those powers will emerge once again. And one of our favorite verses has to do with some of the words of Jesus in Matthew 24, starting in verse 36, "But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be." And what he's saying here is the days of Noah will be sort of transplanted into the latter-day era. And you and I both believe we're seeing that right now.
Absolutely. One of the, in my opinion, we're looking at the return of the Nephilim. It's a different incursion than what happened thousands and thousands of years ago. I believe, I call it the coming great deception. And what we're going to see is, or what we are seeing, is this manifestation of orbs and craft and other phenomena, other anomalies. Meanwhile, shows like the History Channel's Ancient Aliens program is promulgating what I call the coming great deception. They're saying that E.T. created all life on this planet, that they genetically manipulated all life on this planet, that they started the world's civilizations and religions, and now are coming back at this critical juncture in human history. Well, Christians in the church better wake up to what is happening, because this phenomena is real, burgeoning, and not going away.
Dr. Jacques Vallée has addressed the United Nations on UFOs and was the model for the Lacombe character in Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He is the author of 8 books about UFOs and has been widely recognized as the premier researcher in ufology. In his book, Messengers of Deception, he says, "An impressive comparison can be made between UFO occupants and the popular conception of demons." In his book, Confrontations, he writes, "The medical examinations to which abductees are said to be subjected, often accompanied by sadistic sexual manipulation, is reminiscent of the medieval tales of encounters with demons."
Jacques Vallée, at least at that time when he wrote that book, was an agnostic. Interesting that he comes to basically the same conclusions I do as a Christian from my research. And he said about UFOs, they're real, but they're not physical. They're messengers of deception. And this was based on his research of about 20 years. In Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that first film that came out about UFOs, the house that the mother and little boy were living in, you know, the toys began running around and screws unscrewing in the presence of UFOs. What the film was saying was the same people that run UFOs run haunted houses. And I would say that's absolutely true.
John Keel was a world-renowned expert with unidentified flying objects and has written numerous articles and books on the subject. A self-described agnostic, he made this statement: "Thousands of books have been written on the subject of demonology, which is the ancient and scholarly study of monsters and demons. The manifestations and occurrences described in this literature are identical to the UFO phenomenon. Victims of demonic possession suffer from the same medical and emotional symptoms as the UFO contactees.
They have been stripped of their apparel. They go naked, and they have horrible faces."
It's just that the face misses the eyes. They look horrible.
And the eyes, the horrible look, had that information that you just told me?
I think we are looking at a catastrophic situation. I think we are looking at a disaster. We are seeing a unified program here with these beings, a program of physiological exploitation by one species of another. And I know this sounds absolutely insane. We're looking at a colonization program in some way.
This phenomenon phenomenon was a real phenomenon. This was something that was actually happening to these people.
I was like paralyzed.
What you call like a little being, but he was luminescent, like light.
The big bulbous head, the gray skin. What I saw was a typical gray. The big black eyes.
2.5, 3 feet tall.
They all were dealing with something that was very unusual from a human perspective. This was something I felt that we needed an answer to, because at this point in time there were no answers.
Now, there was a direct correlation between the experiment, the DNA experiment now, of giants to little gray aliens. They are actually related. We look at what the Bible says. It happened once, the giants, and then the flood. Well, then the giants came back, didn't they? Satan wasn't about to let that go. And ever since the mid-'80s now, the 1980s, we've had the little gray aliens. At that point, we had, I don't know how many different types of aliens. We had red one, green one, blue one, black one, some with scales, some with human skin, some with long hair, short hair, eyes, short eyes, name it, we have it. Something strange happened in the mid-'80s. We have one common alien now, don't we? The little grays. Big bulging eye, gray skin, no hair, 4.5 feet tall, skinny little dudes. Yeah, why? Why is it we only have them now? Did all the other so-called alien nations decide to just pack up their bags and leave? Or is something else going on here that we're not looking at? And trust me, that is the answer. We're not looking at this right. Because, as I said, there's a direct relationship between the gray aliens and those ancient giants.
There's a spike in UFO sightings. We're getting more than ever before. There's a whole disclosure movement where people are saying they are already here. The governments of the UK, the French government, Belgium, the Germans, the Japanese, Brazil, and Mexico all have gone on the record stating unequivocally that this phenomena is real. And so you get this sort of deer in the headlight, you know, people, oh, those little gray guys are back again, Bob. That's right, Ted. You get that kind of chuckle stuff on the news. But what's happening is we need a real serious dialogue because the phenomena is real, it's burgeoning, and it's not going away. And just the fact that the governments in the countries that I named a minute ago have already disclosed that the phenomena is real should be enough to wake up the church. But most of the church sits with its head in the sand and plays church. We're told that Satan comes with all signs and lying wonders. We're told by Jesus, you know, unless those days were shortened, no flesh would survive. We're told by Jesus again, let no one deceive you, right? That even the elect would be deceived if that were possible. Why is it that we can't look at those passages of Scripture and begin to take them seriously and understand that we are in the window of time where all this is not going to happen, but it's manifesting now?
You know, I've met now hundreds of people who claim they've been abducted by aliens. There are events that you cannot explain naturalistically. I mean, ridiculously, the most common mistaken UFO is the planet Venus, believe it or not. 27% of all sightings are the planet Venus, and it just sits there in the sky. So it shows you how people interpret things wrong. But we see craft moving on radar at incredible speeds. They fly into one another and become one object and go off in another direction. They defy the laws of physics. People that claim they're abducted, they say, you know, the aliens, that they think they're aliens, walk through the walls. And then they claim they're abducted into a spaceship and they go through the walls. Well, real physical craft and real physical beings cannot do that. So even the secular researchers, and it's not little Joe Christian saying this, I actually use the research from all the secular researchers, and it shows you that they kind of reach what they call a paranormal or a paraphysical explanation. And I would agree with that, but I wouldn't use the words paranormal or paraphysical. I would say maybe spiritual or supernatural.
It gets weird here. In my research, and I know this gets really woo-woo here, okay? And if you're not up to this stuff, this sounds really far out. But it's scientific. We have talked to people that have claimed to have been abducted by aliens, okay? First of all, they're not aliens. We believe that they're interdimensional beings, i.e. fallen angels. There's a hybridization program going on. Whatever these beings are, they're extremely interested in our DNA and manipulating that DNA. We hear that over and over and over again. We have removed 16 implants, not we, but one of our colleagues, Dr. Roger Lear, has removed 16 implants from people. We have a trail, a chain of evidence. We have the person who tells this bizarre story of being abducted, okay, But now we bring it into the lab. We've got x-rays, here's the object. Okay, so the person isn't telling a lie. We've got a chain of evidence. We take the object out, we put it under a scanning electron microscope, lo and behold, we see carbon nanotubes. It is a computer running, we think, about 100 times faster than the fastest computer we have on the planet. Our computers run about 3.5 gigahertz here. This chip has a clock speed. It gives off a signal when it's in the host body of 317 gigahertz. We think it's a clock speed. This thing, whatever it is, it's changing the host DNA. It's a prototype. And I realize if you haven't traveled in this stuff, it sounds incredibly bizarre. But here's the scientific evidence, with a whole chain back to the host telling this bizarre story. Here's the implant that comes out of the host. Now we cut the implant in half. We look at it under an electron scanning microscope, and what do we see? Carbon nanotubes, fissures, like weird little, look like ganglia coming off this thing, where the nerve endings wrap around from the host, wrap around and sort of dock with this implant. The implant has a secretion which keeps the body from expunging it. High strangeness. Satan comes with all signs and lying wonders. It's time for us to, get the heads out of the sand and begin to look at this phenomena and understand that he's guarding this. But what would make people take the mark of the beast? What would make people want to line up and take this thing? No Christian in their right mind would. But Christianity has been, for the most part, like I said earlier, sort of chopped off at the knees, eroded by Darwinism. So you've got millions, billions of people who are awaiting something. They're looking for something. They're looking for our progenitors. And this is what I call the coming great deception, and it ties right in with the mark of the beast.
I would love someone to stand up and say, God doesn't live outside of you. God is you.
While J.Z. Knight is among the more successful mediums, she is certainly not alone. A nearly identical doctrine is preached from a series of channelers who believe they are in communication with extraterrestrial spirits from other planets and galaxies. In the documentary UFOs and Channeling, the late actor Telly Savalas reveals that the purpose of channeling these alien entities is entirely consistent with the purpose of the New Thought New Age movement, to change the thinking of mankind.
Tonight, we're going to show you some film that may change the way you think about life. Change the way you think about life.
Next, we are introduced to a woman who channels a spirit, calling itself Leah.
Hello, Philip. How are you today?
Very good, Leah. How are you?
Very fine, thank you. So, what is it that you wanted to know?
Where are you from?
I'm from Venus.
I don't think anybody's going to believe that you or anybody else could be from Venus. Could you explain to us how you could be when everybody knows it's uninhabitable?
They think it's uninhabitable because it is not inhabitable by physical life forms. We have bodies of light.
While Leah rambles on with fantastical ideas, she soon compels the audience toward global unity, a message found throughout the New Age movement.
And what occurs here on this planet will affect the rest of the universe. Can you, with all of your different ideas, all of your different races, come together as one planet and one people? We have dedicated millennia upon millennia to this idea. The earlier experiments with Pan and Lemuria and Atlantis were not successful. But this one will be.
Now the interviewer asks the woman to exchange spirits and to channel another spirit that calls itself the Tibetan. Tibet is an often referred to hotspot for New Age empowerment. Hitler's Nazi occultists went to Tibet thinking to find their ancient Aryan ancestors. Listen carefully to the Tibetan's message as he refers to the great I Am, the name God reveals in the Bible to describe himself.
I am the Tibetan, and I have come during this time continuum to discuss with you the idea of the only question in the universe. And that question is, what is? And the answer is, I am. For all things that are created, that were created, that shall be created, fall under the question, what is? And you, each and every one of you, are that answer, and that answer is, I am. I am is also the name of the creator of this universe. That is all. I relinquish control to the entity, Leah.
As the entity Leah returns, she confirms the You Are God message and refers to the new race that will arise through the New Age movement. Most New Agers today do not realize that this new race is identical to the master race prophesied by Adolf Hitler, a race of so-called supermen who will be their own gods, having rejected the one true God of the Bible.
This new age is where there will be a race on this planet and throughout all galaxies. And the name of that race will be peace. It's been wonderful spending some time with you. As you take this little piece of information with you, know that you are never alone. You are all connected to the creative source of this universe. And nothing can stop that flow except your denial that you are God.
To understand the New World Order and the New Age worldview, we must go back into history
and examine its origins. But first we must define our terms. By New Age, I am speaking about a worldview that has many facets and components, such as astrological and zodiacal beliefs in the New Age concept, channeling higher powers to achieve knowledge, meditation, the belief that all is one, or forms of monism, the belief that we can attain godhood, esotericism, or in other words, reinterpreting ancient texts to find hidden meanings and unify all religious belief into one, the belief that we need a one-world system for the coming age of Aquarius. By New World Order, I am talking about a political agenda to create a one-world system, one-world government, one-world economy, unity of humanity into one organism, control over humanity, and submission of the masses.
But today, the largest countries of the world have agreed a global plan for recovery and reform. I think a new world order is emerging, and with it the foundations of a new and progressive era of international cooperation.
To understand what is going on today with respect to the New World Order and the New Age movement, we must have recourse to the 19th century organization called the Theosophical Society. This organization in particular, among others, is largely responsible for the modern New Age movement and the political doctrine known as the New World Order. The founder of this organization was a woman named Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. Born August 12, 1831, Helena Blavatsky was very interested early in her life in the supernatural and the mythological. From 1848 to 1858, Blavatsky would travel the world to ascertain an understanding of the religious traditions of the world. She claimed to have traveled to South America, Egypt, Canada, France, Greece, Mexico, Tibet, India, Germany, and England during this time. It is said that during this travel she learned many mysteries, secrets, and occult knowledge from every walk of life. With all of this new esoteric information in her mind, she moved to New York in 1873. Then in 1875, she formed an occult organization called the Theosophical Society. She founded this society with two men, Colonel Henry Steele Olcott and William Quan Judge. According to Olcott, Theosophy already had thousands of members and branches all over the world by 1885. After New York, Blavatsky and Olcott established the Theosophical headquarters in India, and the membership roster grew increasingly as time went on. Blavatsky's influence came from her writings. Her first book was entitled Isis Unveiled, published in 1877. She started a magazine in 1887 called Lucifer Magazine. Her principal work, The Secret Doctrine, was then published in 1888. She then wrote The Key to Theosophy and The Voice of Silence. These works are now famous, and contained in these writings are the doctrines that helped mold the New Age movement to what it is today. It is said that part of Blavatsky's book, The Secret Doctrine, was channeled to her through an ascended master or highly evolved being called Kuthumi, who spoke to her. Belief in these ascended masters who communicate to humanity is very crucial when studying the New Age.
We are, of course, the Pleiadians, and as we've said, it is our pleasure to be here at this time to communicate with you, to give you an opportunity to understand our energy and who we are. This one that speaks through us, we call her our vehicle. She has given you an opportunity to listen to her interpretation of what she feels is taking place as a result of our contact with her.
Allow us to communicate an idea to you, once again, that we would like to call the span. This involves the idea of a span of time and timing that is now upcoming on your planet.
Although many direct experiences with these entities do seem to entail dread and negativity, there are plenty of accounts of positive experiences. Most of these experiences are found within the New Age movement, where the experiences are not direct physical contact, but rather spiritual through a process called channeling. This is where the person willingly invites entities who are referred to as the higher self, ascended masters, higher spiritual beings, extraterrestrial entities who are communicating telepathically, entities of higher densities, and a number of other alleged beings who are more evolved than human beings. Most of the quotes we've looked at in an earlier section of the ancient mystery schools and theosophy were all channeled information. In the case of Helena Blavatsky, the entity she channeled was named Kuthumi and El Morya, both of whom were considered ascended masters for northern India and Tibet. Alice Bailey channeled the entity Dejwal Khul, also considered an ascended master. Today there are several New Age teachers who claim to get their information from a source of a higher spiritual origin.
According to the New Agers, Theosophists, as well as many elitists and Freemasons, there exists a group of highly evolved men and women called the Masters of Wisdom. These powerful groups claim that Buddha, Krishna, Muhammad, and Jesus were all masters of wisdom, and that a being named Maitreya is the leader of these beings, who in turn is subject to the true leader, Sanat Kumara. New Age Theosophist Dane Rudhar concedes that the leader of the Masters, Sanat Kumara, is in fact Satan, according to the esotericists. Quote, Satan is an anagram for Sanat Kumara, who in the esoteric philosophy of India is the Promethean being who gave mankind the fire of self-conscious and independent individual selfhood, unquote. John Michael Greer in the New Encyclopedia of the Occult notes, quote, Satan has a possible echo in theosophic lore, where the Lord of the world, the spiritual ruler of the earth, and the head of the Great White Lodge is Sanat Kumara, a lord of the flame who descended to earth from Venus in a fiery chariot some 6 million years ago, unquote. Helena Blavatsky taught her students that it is actually Satan who is God, the Messiah, and that Jehovah is the evil one. She stated, quote, It is but natural, even from the dead letter standpoint, to view Satan, the serpent of Genesis, as the real creator and benefactor, the father of spiritual mankind. For it is he who was the harborer of light, bright radiant Lucifer, who opened the eyes of the automation created by Jehovah, as alleged, and he who was the first to whisper, In the day ye eat thereof, ye shall be as Elohim, knowing good and evil, can only be regarded in the light of a Savior, an adversary to Jehovah, the personating Spirit. He still remains in esoteric truth, the ever-loving messenger, the angel, the seraphim and cherubim, who both knew well and loved still more, and who conferred on us spiritual instead of physical immortality. The Theosophist H. Alexander Fusel seeks to deify Satan. Quote, Satan, then, was originally a divine being destined to carry light and life to the netherworlds. He stands for the gift of free will and self-conscious mind to man, a power which at once seduces and uplifts man, for with free will comes the power to go astray. Satan is therefore man's teacher.
This is Edward Alexander Crowley, also known as Aleister Crowley. He styled himself the wickedest man in the world. He believed himself to be the great beast, and he changed his name to Aleister Crowley so it would add up in both English, Hebrew, and Greek Kabbalah as 666. In 1904, Crowley had a communication with an extraterrestrial being named Iwas. And this being, through his wife, kind of a channeling type operation, brought forth a book that was called the Book of the Law in 1904. And this book declared that the slain and risen God, i.e. Jesus, had stepped off the throne, and that a new God, the crowned and conquering child, was taking his place.
Crowley's most renowned work, and one whose composition is worth understanding in the context of our study. While visiting Egypt in 1904, Crowley's first wife, Rose, began going into spontaneous trances, muttering things like, "They are waiting for you," and "He who was waiting was Horus." Intrigued, Crowley and Rose went to visit the Cairo Museum. From a distance she spied a glass case and exclaimed, there he is." Upon inspection, The case did contain an image of Horus painted on a wooden stele, but what particularly stunned Crowley was its exhibit number, 666, his number, the number of the beast. Convinced now that something supernatural was happening, Crowley went back to his hotel and performed a ritual, summoning this higher power. Over 3 successive days, beginning on April 8th, the book was channeled through Crowley while in a trance. And the content of this revelation? I am the snake that giveth knowledge, the Spirit said. To worship me take wine and strange drugs, whereof I will tell my prophet. Falling on precisely the wrong side of the Bible's account concerning the fall of man and Satan's role, this snake spirit begins the revelation by telling man that he is a god, that reality is essentially an illusion, sin a myth, and that ethically there's no greater commandment than the law of Thelema, Greek for will, as famously stated in the 40th verse of chapter 1.
Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law.
Marilyn Manson noted the universality of this satanic ethic when he observed, the idea of Antichrist is an unspoken knowledge that every person has. It's just the acceptance of yourself as a powerful being who can make their own decisions. It's not someone with a 666 on their head. And Satanism is about worshiping yourself because you are responsible for your own good and evil.
How would you define, what would you define being a Satanist as?
Worship of themselves. You're worshiping yourself when you worship Satan.
Aleister Crowley stated it this way in his infamous Book of the Law. Every man and every woman is a star or a god.
I am, we are stardust.
Yes.
What does that mean?
For me, the most astonishing fact is that the molecules that comprise our body are traceable to the crucibles of the centers of stars that manufactured these elements from lighter versions of themselves and then exploded, scattering this enrichment across the galaxy into gas clouds that would later collapse to form next-generation star systems. One of those star systems was ours. These atoms and molecules are in us because, in fact, the universe is in us. And we are not only figuratively, but literally stardust.
As you can see, the deception runs deep throughout science. Satan has infiltrated science. He's infiltrated the government, the military. They are keeping the secret of our world, the entire universe, the Big Bang universe lie, has been a massive deception. We can clearly see that everything is leading to the spirituality of Satanism. Satanism is nothing more than believing in yourself, is saying no to God and doing what you will, doing what you want. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. This is what we see with the alien, the UFO deception. In an enclosed world created special and unique, planets, entire galaxies have all been a lie. Space has been constructed by Satan. Dark, void, black. This is the flat earth truth of the UFO alien deception. NASA, the military, government, scientism has all been lies. They're all leading mankind to a pinnacle, to a point in history where there will be contact, where the answers will become clear. Don't fall for the deception. Don't be deceived. This is an evil, evil system being set up, has been set up for years. The entire Big Bang universe constructed is nothing more than lies. The Bible is very clear that we were created unique, that the earth is stationary, it's motionless. The earth does not move, that everything, the sun, the moon, and the stars revolve around us. Look up in the sky. Don't listen to what you've been told, whether it's spinning the globe in your classroom. Go out, look with your own eyes, test things, put them through scientific experiments. The scientific method is to test. Don't fall for the deception. As you can see, Satan is behind the entire thing. Do not put your trust in man, but put your trust in God. God's ways are above man's. The wisdom of man is foolishness to God. Repent. Turn from your ways. Turn to God. Ask Him for His truth. Ask Him for the truth of His Son, Jesus Christ. I pray that God touches you with His Spirit, that you wake up, you become a child of God, and you're refreshed, and you repent, and you're born again. Don't fall for the alien, UFO deceptions. There is no other planets. There is no other life. There is one other life form, and it's the fallen ones, the Nephilim, the fallen angels, Lucifer, minions, whatever you want to call them. There's only one. They have many forms, many shapes, and they're not extraterrestrial. They're extra-dimensional. They reside with man in another realm. Satan walks to and fro the earth looking who he can devour. This is a spiritual battle. Put on the spiritual armor of God. Read the Word of God. Ask God to give you His wisdom, His strength. We are in a war. We're in a war for truth. We're in a war, and we must fight as soldiers. But our war is spiritual. Our war is on our knees, praying, exposing, letting people know the lies of this world. Don't listen to people when they say the Bible is just a book written by man. The Bible is so much more. You want to discredit it. You want to discredit religion. Religion is man-made, but God and true worship. True worshipers will worship in spirit and in truth. These are words from the Bible. Read the Bible. Get to know God. Talk to Him. He will save you from the deception that's coming into this world. He will save you from the lies of evolution and the Big Bang and everything you've been taught about your very existence. Wake up. Don't be deceived. Know the truth.